Welcome. I'm going to be presenting, we're going to be presenting in a little while, but we don't have slides on this, but you guys do, so you're going to get started here. I'd like to introduce some people.
Do we have the live feed going?
I don't know.
There's a recording of this?
The light is on, so I'm assuming people at home are watching me.
Wave if you can see us.
Okay, fantastic. These are lovely human beings from Homeward Trust in Edmonton, and this is their slideshow. Brilliant. And I'll let them introduce themselves because I did have a dinner with them last night and they are amazing. They can advocate for themselves just fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you doing it?
You can do
Oh. Now forgive me if I don't get the land acknowledgement right. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on, I'll say Micmac territory. I myself am from Treaty 6 territory in Edmonton, and our presentation is Kawigahanawak, Together We Will House Them. My name is Rosemary Fayont. I was a member of the community for 25 years. I never ever thought I was homeless. I was couch surfing on friends, so I was housed. I've been an advocate for the community for the past 24 years. I'm a peer support worker at the George Spady Clinical Access Team in Edmonton. I'm the past president of the Provincial Drug Users Initiative, which I helped found. I've also been on advocating for our community members at the local, provincial, and federal levels. And I'm happy to be here, sort of. I mean, it's ungodly hour. It's only 7 o'clock in Edmonton. Who gets up this early, right?
We're all tired.
So if we stumble, we're on Edmonton time.
Yeah, definitely. Hello, my name is Selma Osman and a student at the University of Victoria in Edmonton, majoring in French and minoring in early childhood education. I am a person with lived experience and have been housed through Homeward Trust. And was put in the youth housing program between the ages of 18 and 19. Then graduated from the program and somehow ended up being part of the youth advisory group. It's been over 5 years now, and we are super excited to share our training that we created from the youth advisory group and the PAC committee.
And I forgot to mention, I've been on the participant advisory committee for the past 11 years when it was just Renee, myself, and a police officer starting, and I wondered, what the hell is a cop doing here when it's come to doing with homelessness? But in Edmonton, they want it to be everywhere. So we're the Participant Advisory Committee and the Youth Advisory Group. Next slide.
Oopsie, sorry.
I'm technically impaired. Everyone on the committee, that's why I have so many grandchildren. They help me.
Perfect, and then the land acknowledgement.
I did,
We did? Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Treaty 6 Edmonton.
Yeah.
Everyone on our committees are leaders in some capacity or other with lived experience, and many of us are now working in the field, working with the community. Many of us have overlapping and similar experiences, but they're all unique and valuable to advising on programs, services, and initiatives in Edmonton's housing and homeless serving communities. We operate as a bridge between homelessness and housing, and I have to acknowledge that Homeward Trust in Edmonton has been essential in us getting to where we are, and Katie has really helped us get where we are. We operate as a bridge between housing and the homeless sector. Oh, and Quinn as well, he's a big supporter of ours. We operate between a bridge, and as leaders in the community, we empower one another to find each other's voices, and we speak for the community that can't speak for themselves. We are advocates, disruptors. My boss has told me I'm a shit disturber, but what can I say, right? That's me. We bring access to and knowledge to the organizations that wouldn't have the lived experience knowledge that we have. And we bring forward solution-focused ideas for projects, initiatives that we know can improve the lives of people who are where we have been. We work from a mutual empowerment to bring these projects into action, and we see this as an immediate impact on the work we do on behalf of the community. Finally, and very importantly, we approach all our work with love, respect, and just a bit of humor. And together we are bringing reconciliation to action for our community members. Oh, it's me again? Good Lord. This is a picture of our groups. So we want to exemplify the impact of people who've lived with experience. This is a first one of a kind of its training is what we have been told, and it's developed by us. We are the experts and we know how to work with the community. Kawikahanawak. I mean, I'm Métis, but it took me a long time to learn that. I took Cree in university. Man, fork is a 15-letter word in Cree. It exists to provide a lived expertise lens on housing first principles. Staff in their sector, which we have our frontline support workers, our housing outreach workers come to the training. We have had staff in our pilot projects from Homeward Trust in human resources, data entry, from finance, and they said they all learned something where they could work better even within their own teams. It addresses a gap as two see? 7 o'clock at home.
Oh yeah.
As two living expert representatives from Homeward Trusts will talk about the training that we developed. When we deliver this training in the community, it's 2 hours, so this is just a snapshot of what we do. And we're not telling the workers what to do, we're just giving them tips on how to better work with the community.
Perfect. So what is the training? In 2022, we brought forward the idea of us creating and delivering a training that examines the 5 principles of housing first from a worker and a lived perspective to deliver to the community. And from this idea, we created a unique, peer-driven, community-led, and innovative training that would help us each to improve as housing supporters that work with our youths.
We actually started this in 2019, saying that we needed to do some training for our housing workers, because when a community member goes from one housing team to another, there's so many differences, and it's very confusing for the community. So we wanted to do training where we could get kind of a flow from one housing team to another. And then COVID hit and we couldn't meet in person until 2022. And then with the help of Homeward Trust, we were able to get the training developed.
All right, next slide. All right, before I start this slide, I just want to say I speak 4 other languages, so if I pronounce one of the words wrong, I'm sorry. Okay, so number 1. Emphasize the need for mutual respect and accountability and consistency in workers. Number 2, explain the different ways people in crisis or distress may communicate. Number 3, explore the principle of housing first from a lived and living expertise lens. And then number 4, provide actionable tools that will assist in effective engagement with community members. Just like the topic we picked, the objectives were also picked by the committee, and they were decided based on the needs we saw in the sector and in the sector staff. They are emphasize the need for accountability and consistency in workers, explain the different ways people in crisis or distress may communicate, reinforce the need for mutual respect, and explore the principle of housing first from a lived and living expertise.
You have to stand more here, she can't hear you.
Oh, super sorry. Do I need to go over it one more time?
No, okay, next slide.
Okay, what are the desired outcomes of the training? Number 1, system change. Number 2, reducing barriers. Number 3, worker retention. For system changes, make the system easier for people to navigate and for everyone to work together to get people connected to the resources help they need. This is done through increasing the amount of understanding and empathy that workers have towards their client. And then for reducing barriers, we are able to point out stigma and barriers that the community is facing that staff may previously have been unaware of or blind to. And then we could also provide knowledge and skills to help workers feel more prepared to identifying those barriers and dismantle them as they work with their participant. And then for worker retention, by giving frontline workers a skill and acknowledgement that the committee has access to on working with the community, it helps better prepare workers. Research has shown that When people are properly trained for their job, that increases retention as well.
And one thing, taller than you, one thing we do teach, is how community members react when they first see a worker. I've had a worker who a community member told her to fuck off, so she wouldn't work with her anymore. She had her supervisor go and work with her. And to me, that's unacceptable. That's their street bravado. That's what got them where they are, so they need to learn how to work better with the community. And I understand everybody needs a job, but you need to really know the community you're working with and how to work with them. Like I said earlier, our intended audience is frontline workers and their supervisors, human resources, program managers, and anyone and everyone in the sector. The desired outcome of this is to create change within the sector so that the community can be treated fairly, non-discriminatory, and with love and respect. And it's done to create change and positive outcome with the frontline workers and also for the community. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, sweet Lord. See, 7 o'clock where I come from. Besides participants, clients, staff in the sector do not typically have insight to our knowledge. So by providing training that is created by us with lived experience and expertise, they can get access to the insight, information, and perspective so they can better work with the community. Training allows for the access to be given in a way that is trauma-informed and where people with the experience are being compensated for it. There is another presentation tomorrow morning that does tell how the group got started and how we're compensated. And why is that? It's pretty dang good. The insight, information, perspective are unique, beneficial, and very impactful. We've done several pilot projects, and we've actually done one training for FSWs, and one housing agency sent all their staff. And I work with one of the housing workers, and she goes, she learned so much for that 2-hour presentation and how to better work with the community.
Alrighty, so what are the principles of Housing First? Number 1, access to housing with no housing readiness requirement. Number 2, participant choice and self-determination. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I forgot. Number 3, individualized, recovery-oriented, and participant-driven supports. Number 4, harm reduction and trauma-informed care. And number 5, community and social connection. During the training, all those who attended are asked to discuss and explore what the 5 principle means to you. Like, which one stands to you the most? Just number 1, number 2, okay. 5, 2, 4, and 3. So pretty much all of them. Awesome.
Alrighty. So I know when it comes to harm reduction, we all know what harm reduction is. But what about harm reduction for the worker themselves? Like, what do you do after a stressful day? Because I know a lot of workers, they have a history that they don't divulge, or they have a family member with a history. So what do you do to protect yourself? Do you go home, take a hot bubble bath, go home, or drive on your way home, scream? I've done that, and people look at me like, is this woman nuts? And trauma-informed care for you. What do you do when you're triggered with your traumas? I know a lot of agencies do have, what do we call that? Pardon me? Yeah, whatever that, yeah. EFP. But, we have, where I work at the George Beatty Clinical Access Team, we have $2,500 a year for mental health supports. If you have that, access it, because it really, really helps. So now I'm going to be doing the staff perspective because I work with the community, and Salma will be doing the lived experience perspective. Housing first is a principle that's housing first apart from other interventions. With the community we work with, they always feel they're under scrutiny, that the housing worker can evict them at any time. I've had community members come and say to me, I was told I have to work with you. Because on my team, we have mental health therapists, we have social workers, and my team is completely voluntary. So it's, training the workers that no, this is voluntary. They don't have to work with us. They don't have to work with anyone they don't want to. And, they always feel that the worker has the power to pull their home or their funding at any time. With no housing readiness, you don't have ID, you don't have benefits to get your housing, you're using substances. I've had workers tell people that they have to go into treatment or they can't keep their housing. And I say bullshit. It's doing what you want to do, not what someone tells you. We're all human beings. We all have a mind of our own. We know what we need. It's a revolutionary belief. Not everybody believes, like a lot of workers don't believe. There's tons of good workers. It's a few that, need their ass kicked. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just saying. And start get them a home first, because everything comes after that. If you're walking around all night, sleeping in a tent, you're not, you can't deal with your substance use, your mental health. You need your head on a pillow at night so that you can say, hey, this is something I want to work on. I mean, I've worked with people who have completed our program 8 years ago. One fellow came in and saw me the other day. He said, I never thought I would quit using. He's got custody of his 2 sons from his ex-wives, working, bought a car. He says, can you believe this was me? He said, you always told me I could do it. It's just believe in the person, because then everything will come after that.
Yay. That's amazing. All right, so, oh my God, I keep forgetting the slides. Okay, access to permanent housing with no housing readiness requirement from a lived and living perspective. It is really important for me to know that the housing process can take up either a month to 4 months until getting the keys. It really helps when you are also checking up on the youth once in a while to see how they are doing during this process, but also keeping some sort of update on where and which number they are on the list. Housing is a process, and it is not always a linear one. Everyone's ready for a home. For me, I was really in a dark spot, like when I was 18 to 19, looking for housing, and just like reaching out and seeing who can actually help me out. And that was like home or trust for me. And I had a worker that took me in, and I trusted them, They were someone like I can look up to, like kind of like an adult that I needed at that time. So I was ready for housing, but I didn't have like everything I needed, right? Like ID or like and that's like a big accomplishment as a worker as well, like helping them get all those things they need.
Okay. Am I doing this one? Oh, no. And there's a very misbelief out there that people want to be homeless. Nobody grew up saying, hey, I'm going to be homeless when I become an adult. We have a large population in Edmonton of our youth that are now homeless, seniors, people coming out from corrections, because there's just nothing for them. I feel that everybody should have a home. So from a staff perspective, housing options should be made that are suitable for the community member. Don't put them on the 3rd floor of an apartment, which happens quite often, without an elevator if they have a walker or a wheelchair or mobility issues. Have conversations with them. Ask them where they want to live. Is there a church group they belong to? Let them know where the newest food bank is. Bus routes. I actually took a bus with one of our community members one time, and he told me I was going the wrong way. I needed to get on the right bus because I don't do buses. I said, next time we'll drive. If you give the community member more choice, there'll be more buy-in, and there'll be much more success for the community member. Let them know what they're getting into. I know with Homeward Trust, they have a fund where they pay part of the community member's rent for 1 year. But let them know that you have to start getting other things in place before that year ends up, because we don't want to see you end up homeless again, which does sometimes happen.
Alrighty. Participant choice and self-determination from a lived and living experience perspective. Listen to what they want in a home. Allow for informed choice. And for me, participant choice and self-determination provides a greater long-term solution for ending chronic homelessness because I will stay longer in places I like and want and choose. An example, I wanted my first apartment to have like a balcony. And I didn't end up getting that, but I was sad. But I didn't end up staying there. But if I were to get the balcony part of it, I think I would stay there longer. Because I'm currently living in an apartment with a balcony. But yeah. And then I also, I wanted Wi-Fi. And getting information on the best deal one was what I needed from a worker. Also allowing for an informed choice on things like cable internet by explaining what they are signing them up for before signing them up is really important as well.
I know a lot of community members get cable, then they start ordering Super Channel and everything else, and they get this big bill, and how am I going to pay for this? Get them a Fire Stick or a Chrome, whatever that thing is. Fire Stick, I know, I have one. You know, and when they say they don't want a landline, they have a cell phone. Please get them a landline, because if you're a person who uses substances, you can pawn it or it gets stolen. And you just need a landline so that the worker can get in touch with you as well as other workers that work with you. Recovery is different for each and every person. I know when I went into recovery, I went to NA once. It was the best place to find out where to buy heroin at the end of the meeting. So heck, I didn't go that route. Katie's laughing at me. With me. Okay, I went to women's recovery groups. I went to a group, Women Leaving the Street, and you just have to know that recovery is so individualized. Don't tell them you have to go to treatment. I've had social workers at Alberta Works say in the past, if you don't go to recovery, you are cutting off your benefits. Well, BS, I pay taxes, you give it to them, that money. It's participant driven. They'll tell you what they need, when and when they want it. And you have to be very flexible when you work with the community. You have to work within their timeline. I've worked with workers, and even on my own team sometimes, we had this to do and this to do. I said, who cares? That tomorrow's another day. Listen to what they want.
Okay, individualized, recovery-oriented, and participant-driven supports living and lived expert perspective. What does meeting someone where they are at look like? And part of recovery is recovering from experiences of homelessness. For me, it is important that you know that before coming forward with the youth, to mentally prepare yourself, take care of your mental state. Because you never know what exactly they will end up sharing with you, and it could be a little bit deep than expected. The goal is also to help them recover from what they're dealing with, switch it to a better outcome coming forward with the housing process that you are providing them. For me, participant-driven supports, an example would be I needed somewhere to just go to the YMCA. That's exactly where they sent me. They sent me to the YMCA. I had a worker that was helping me out, hey, how are you doing? How's everything going so far? Do you miss your family? Are you feeling it felt like someone I can connect with, and that's something that helped me a lot along this journey, just living on my own. Yeah.
Harm reduction applies to more than substances. It's getting your first set of keys. My kids and grandkids would say I have a big mouth and I don't need a mic, but what do they know, right? Harm reduction, like I said earlier, can be don't put someone on the third floor apartment if you have mobility issues. Listening to what somebody says is harm reduction. Taking them on the bus, even if you get lost, take them. And to have support workers that are trained in trauma-informed care, I know all of our agencies in Edmonton, you have to take trauma-informed care for the community members. It's a requirement. Homeward Trust provides that for us. And understand that the community has a lot of trauma. I know for myself, there was a lot of domestic violence growing up and the sexual abuse. The community members are no different. Trauma living on the street. I have one fellow who was homeless for 6 years. He goes, well, that's not trauma. I said, what did you experience on the street? And then he said, that is trauma. I never thought of it as that. It was just another day in my life, you know, and let them feel the impacts of the process when they're coming to realize they have trauma.
Alrighty. Harm reduction and trauma-informed care from a living and lived perspective. How the participant look at the world and how they interact with people is impacted by trauma. They may have experienced or still be experiencing trauma they might not tell us about. Everyone reacts differently when they are triggered, and it's important to not take things personally. How they look at the world and how they interact with people is impacted by trauma. Getting individuals set up with stuff like Chromecast or Fire Stick is a form of harm reduction.
Chromecast is what I didn't know.
It is important to realize that our youth are sharing history of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, as well as serious illness and negative experience in their well-being settings. And responding with empathy and understanding it is important. What are we trying to accomplish with this principle? Making a positive change and working with others without judgment, discrimination, or requiring that people stop using I need help.
Substances.
Thank you. As a precondition of support. I'll share a little bit of story from my trauma from when I was little. My parents are divorced, so I wasn't raised by my mom, neither from my dad. Who raised me was my grandma for like 11 years. And throughout my childhood, I like went through trauma, like so much more trauma. And like seeing your mother 14 years later and like dropping out of high school because she said, hey, come live with me. But because you play basketball, she said, oh, you're not girly enough. But she also bought me the ball. Right? And it's like, what? That's like a part of trauma that I had to like deal with. And till this day, it does affect me. Like I have a fear of like being abandoned. And that's something I'm still working on. Which is why I like, every time I have someone who's trying to help me out, like I trust them. So it's really important to just like have that trust and like just trusting the youth is so important, you know, that come up to you. So.
And I have to say now that we're seeing more youth and seniors coming out of homelessness, you know, and it's really sad. I mean, I'm a senior. I tell my grandkids I'm 29 with 31 years experience, but they say, Grams, you're just old. From a staff perspective, you have to make the community member a very welcome part of the community. I'm the peer support worker at George Spady Clinical Access Team, and I have 2 picnics a year where they can invite if they have children, they can bring them. We're seeing a lot of families coming now into my agency. Christmas, I'm so excited. I could decorate 3 houses. But, we have a Christmas party, and I send a broadcast email to the agency for gently used or new gifts. And we have turkey, the traditional turkey dinner, ham, everything. Santa Claus comes, and he makes them sit on their knee or stand beside him, because some of our guys are pretty big. And for some of them, it's the first gift they've had since they were a kid. And just to see the smiles on their faces, and then we get them to come in and help us cook and stuff, and just make them a part of it. We also have a collective kitchen now where they pay $5 once a month, and they do the cooking. Like before, it was us helping do all the cooking, myself and 2 other staff members, and now they do the cooking, and they're dishing up the food, and they get 6 to 7 meals to take home. And we have one gentleman who had been, I hate the word homeless, houseless for 8 years. Now he's sending us recipes all the time and cooking and taking over the kitchen, and it's just amazing. And community can look very different for many people. I had my biological family, my street family, my family from when I was in jail when I was younger. I have a pardon now. It'll be 5 years on Saturday since I've had it. Thank you. And don't limit access to supports or programs because a person's passed. If that had happened to me, I don't know where I would be today. I mean, I had a doctor who believed in harm reduction, and I had a fine that that's when the police used to say, hey, if you don't pay this fine, you're going to jail. And I thought, oh crap, I have kids now. I went to him and told him what happened, and I was really early in my recovery. He actually paid my $900 driving with no insurance fine. And he said to me, I know you may never be able to pay this back, but just helping one person in your life is payment enough for me. And look where I am now. Yeah.
Okay, so social and community connection, living in lived expert perspective. Natural supports are a key of any successful housing. What is in the area? It is very important to be able to provide details on where exactly to take the bus from home to work, such as how transportation works and which route to take. When I first moved into my apartment, I didn't know what was near me, or I didn't know what area I was living in, kind of. And came to find out it was in Coliseum, where it's just dangerous. Someone got stabbed in my parking lot. And like, how do I take the bus? Or where's my nearest food bank? I've had a worker just give me like a paper just full of the food bank locations. It would be helpful to just like, hey, you can go to this food bank. It's just like 2 blocks away. You can walk there. That would have been like really easy to access as well. Asking if they need cooking, reading, or life skills. Like, I didn't know how to budget. I didn't know what bills were. Doing my taxes. I didn't know how to do my taxes or where to go to do it for free. That's also a big part to think about when you're housing the youth. And then connecting with a peer support person, offering that support during the transition into their home. Natural supports can be family, friends, support groups, cultural leaders, religious organization as well. Yeah.
Some key takeaways we'd like you to take is build trust with the community member. Trust works both ways. In order to get their trust, you have to trust them as well. Remember that harm reduction isn't limited to substances. Learn from the community. They have a wealth of knowledge, and once you gain their trust, they're so willing to share it with you. The same gentleman who keeps sending recipes keeps sending me new lists for soup kitchens in Edmonton that are working now. And don't take things personally. Like I said, if someone swears at you, don't take it personally. That's just their street bravado. And ask the experts. The community are the experts, and ask them. They will tell you what they need and what they want. And I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Participant Advisory Council and Youth Advisory Group. And I want to let you know none of this would be possible if it weren't for Homeward Trust allowing us to do this work. Thank you.
Wait. I wanted to add some stuff. Okay.
And she was scared. Her knees were shaking
I know.
when we came in here.
Okay, so I wanted to add that, like, if it wasn't Homeward Trust and not getting housed by the worker I was getting helped with, I would have not been here today. And I believe that you guys can make that change as well and have a lot more youth like me, like, be here. You know, it's a great opportunity, and it's nice to share, like, what I went through with you guys to, like, help you guys support the next person that you're helping. Yeah, thank you.
And it just takes one person to change a person's life. Now I'll be quiet. This is yours.
So we figured out who was supposed to be moderating the session. It was us. They figured that we didn't need one, and so you're welcome. But thank you so much, Selma and Rosemary. I actually had an opportunity to take the training that they were just talking about, to watch the first session and participate in it. and it was fantabulous, which is absolutely a word, and raised itself to levels of kickassery, which you have no idea about. Kickassery, also a word. All right. But you'll need to give us a couple of seconds to get up and running.
Do you want us?
Absolutely words. We don't have.
We're gonna have to change computers because we realized that an interactive piece that we're doing isn't gonna work on this laptop, so we're just gonna flip it quick. So we're just gonna take out the HDMI.
Is this training you do in person or do you do Zoom at all?
We do it in person. We're trying to look at different ways we can get it out to communities. For now, it's just in person at Homer Trust. And we do it once every 3 months, but my boss said we need to do it every month. But I understand there's training things that the Homer Trust has, but that's something we're looking at.
Are you looking at like allowing access and other?
Katie can answer that.
Katie is our lovely person and boss. I just need my water.
It's really,
But, yeah.
yes. And where are you from?
Homelessness runner.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, awesome.
So, training.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just to see the expressions in some of the people's faces, like there's one team lead I work with. We have a client in mutual ed. She sent her whole team to training. They're writing notes and stuff. And like I said, this housing worker said, I learned so much.
They're more confident, they'll stay in their jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, found it and it's now on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not fair for a community member to have 5, 6 workers within 7 months. There's no trust there, and we're only allowed to work with a year now. We used to be able to work with community members. Katie'd say, always say, 2 to 3 years we need, 2 to 3 years we need. But it came down, it's based on a model from the US. And in that year, you're just getting their trust.
Absolutely. You can access that microphone.
Oh, okay. You guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Very cool.
Alrighty.
So then, I'll do the reports.
It'll come on.
I'll do the reports in the pack. Is it plugged in properly?
What?
For some reason? I'll do the reports in the pack.
Sure. Can we just send away the IT person after?
We got it.
There we are. Okay.
All right, that's what we do. We pivot and
Pivot some more.
we make it work. So welcome everybody to the conference this year. Everybody's enjoying themselves? Yeah? Okay, awesome. You know what, I knew that as soon as registration took like 1.3 seconds that we were good to go. So my name is Wally Check. I am the Director of Training for the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. I have been doing that since about 2015 when the TTA began. And for a while, and this is my way of introducing my team, but for a while I worked initially with Quinn, who was part of how we began, as we had sort of a faculty of trainers that would contract with us and do different things based on their niche or levels of expertise in different areas. And then eventually he harassed me long enough that I had to take him on because he wouldn't shut up otherwise. And so here he is. And then just barely over 3 years ago, we brought Jody on. 4 years ago. Holy cow! Yeah, we brought Jody on. She was actually before Quinn. But yes, this is my team. So Quinn Morkey, who you've already been introduced to, he's sort of our local MC. And then Jody Yurkowski Pace, who joined us in the process of moving from Victoria to Halifax. And then just a year ago, she decided she was going to move back to Victoria. So anyways, she's from here, knows here. And
What can I say? I like water.
So we want to talk to you today about training, because not just because that's what we do, but because we also know how valuable and how important it is in order to effectively do the work that you do. And there's lots of talk about multiple things in this sector that are needed to end homelessness. But the one thing that we always come down to, and you heard it yesterday in the opening plenary, where Pam, I believe it was, the executive director of the Friendship Center here in Halifax, commented about exactly that, but she didn't use the word training. She indicated how we need the wraparound supports. That if we don't have the wraparound supports, nothing else matters. And that's where the training and technical assistance comes in. We're proponents of things like coordinated access, but you can have the most well-oiled system in the world, but if you don't have the ability to support people in their stabilization process, to support people as they progress and move forward and learn, the things that they need to learn, that they're choosing to learn, and to be able to support them through the bumps and ups and downs of their progress towards whatever recovery is for them, we have to be able to make that happen, because if we can't, they're going to struggle and they're going to come back and they're going to continue to revolve through that well-oiled system. So we'll be really good at moving them around and around through the system, but will they ever achieve that level of stability in their life that they're looking for? I would suggest that it would be much more challenging. So we want to talk to you really about training in general. And so what I need you to do is grab your phones and just scan this QR code quick if you have your phone. If you don't, that's okay. This is going to allow us to do a little bit of surveying of you, and you'll be able to see what you all think as we go through this. If I just stood over there, I'd have a real ego boost thinking that you're all, taking pictures of me and videotaping. Yeah, just point your camera at it and it'll grab the website and take you there. If for some reason it doesn't, you can, we don't have that. Well, it'll be on the next slide. There is a website, it's just slido.com.
This is the free module.
Yeah. This isn't Slido? Yeah, it is. Well, it has to be. Anyway, okay. All right.
So this is actually a free training module that you can access on our LMS from now on. The next one will be the Slido. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
well,
save this somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So who we are, the Canadian Alliance. You know who we are. You can go to our website. You can click on any one of these sections and learn more about it. So I won't belabor you with that. So here's the Slido you actually need to do. That's a different QR code. So my bad. Yeah, if you need to just type it in, you can type in slido.com on your browser and then put in that code.
What's the key?
040899.
899.
Right there.
Number sign, right?
I don't know if I don't think
No,
you
I
have
don't
to put
believe
the
you have
number
to put the
sign.
number sign in.
No, the slide before had a requested a key.
Oh yeah, the slide before is
The
different.
password is HF, capital H, capital F, space 101.
We'll put that up at the end again so that you have
Yeah.
it.
Oh, we're just doing this.
Yes.
This is invalid. So this 040899.
Yeah. If you typed it into your browser, if you just point your camera at it, it'll grab this one. Sorry, I screwed that up. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's invalid. That's
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that other place where it was asking for a key was to our LMS, our learning management system. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
this
And I have no idea how much money Quinn made it so you had to pay to register for that other thing, so. Okay, the code will be on the next slide too, so you can chime in, so we'll get rolling here. So first question, and all you gotta do is just type your answer into your phone.
No, first one, back.
Well, it didn't have a question.
Yeah, where are you from?
You're right
And
there.
what's your role?
Yeah, just type in where you're from.
And what your role is?
We're not getting it.
It's popping.
Yeah, I need text.
I feel like you guys would like this question. I have it, it just popped up.
Yeah, see the answers are coming up.
Right, what do I take?
Oh, see, somebody's from 040899, that's it.
It just says enter a word.
Yeah, so just type a word of where you're from. Look at, we got nurses, we got managers, engagement managers, peer support people, manager of education, EDs, we got everybody in here, nurses, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Halifax, Victoria, so we got people from across the country, that's great. And so, feel free to interact with us here and share your wealth of information as we go through these things. But this just gives you a sense of who's in the room and who you're sitting next to and what experience level that they might have in this sector. All right, next question. Who currently provides your staff training? Okay.
Answers are on a click.
Hmm?
Get a click.
So so far, in-house is primarily where it's coming from. So each of your agencies are just doing your own training within-house.
14% have said they don't have regular training.
Yeah. Okay. Within your system, and I think the question I have is within your system, is it made available to all service providers within your system? Are you able to access enough of it? I know different systems that will put on training, but yet there's a very limited number of people that can attend those trainings. So that makes it challenging as well. All right, what form of training is provided? Okay, so a little bit of everything. What I'm loving is it says no training provided. Nobody has responded there, so everybody's getting something. Okay. All right, next question. Is your training mandated? And who mandates it? So meaning is it something that you're required to go to, whether it fits your role or not? And who does that? Who makes it mandated? And this is the frustration, right? That if a funder is saying you have to take this training, but then either does it apply to you, or is there enough room for you to be part of it? And do they pay for it?
Yeah. We'll pay for the training, but they don't pay for the backfilling of our staff.
Yeah.
Sort of,
Yeah, great point. Great point. Okay. Are the staff that receive this initial training required to partake in ongoing training or professional development? And do you see that as a valuable thing or not? What are the barriers for your staff to receive the training that you require? So the 24-hour operation, that really speaks to being able to backfill. Time.
Fires.
Crises. Yeah. And funding. So not enough time, not able to fill in for other staff, and not enough money to do it, to make it happen. Frontline management disconnect. That's interesting because we talk about this all the time. Because one of the things that we I don't know, it's difficult for us to require it or mandate it, but we actually put a lot of pressure on communities or organizations that we provide training for and try to demand that there is somebody from management at every training that we do because of this disconnect. And I would suggest that that's probably something that is a lot higher than what's showing here, because it may be something that you hadn't necessarily thought a ton about, but that's a major factor in a lot of the challenges that people are having. What are the strengths of the training that is provided for your organization? Again, just type some things in there. What things make it valuable? What things are important to you about the training that you're getting now? So just so you know, the words that show up really big are words that have been repeated the most. Consistency and relevancy. Interesting. Languages, being able to have a common language in the things that you're talking about. Yeah, that's important. Okay. And what are the weaknesses? And what training is missing? Time. So that's a weakness of the system, right? And being able to get access to it or attend it. Is that a weakness of the actual training? If so, I'd be curious to know what that means. Implementing. So does that mean that the training you're receiving is difficult to know how to move forward with that information and then put it into practice?
And oftentimes that's also related to the frontline management disconnect if management has not attended the training.
Okay. Other than the lack of housing, what is preventing your organization from effectively performing its role in ending homelessness? Well, you got some choices here. They're all factors. So burnout is the biggest, and lack of resources. And to be honest with you, I would say that one of those resources that is lacking the most is training. And then that directly impacts staff retention. One of the biggest causes of your turnover is people not being trained or equipped with the skills that they need. And we know from research that having enough training will often keep someone at their job, if they like the work, even if another job might pay them a little bit more money. And so people often leave. I've heard a lot of organizations talk about how they are the training ground for other organizations. That they get good people, and then those good people leave to take higher paying government jobs or whatever. And I know that that's true. I know that does happen, but I would also suggest that some of that has to do with they found out just how hard this work is, and it's way worse when I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And I don't know how to do it. I don't have the tools. What was missing from the list in the previous question? Do you remember the previous question?
This does not bode well for your attention spans.
So here's a previous question, right? Other than the lack of housing, what is preventing you from effectively performing your role in ending homelessness? Okay,
It was
now.
one slide ago.
So, what is preventing you from effectively doing your job? Other than what was on that list. And I'm not going back
No.
to show you again what was on that list. Support of the board of directors.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually very interesting because we have actually seen on many occasions where the organization is supposed to be, let's say, a housing first organization, and the agency the agency is a housing first program. The organization that they are working for, the board does not agree with the housing first philosophy.
Really?
How does that work, right? And how did they even actually obtain the funding?
They didn't really read everything that went with it, they agreed with it, went along with it, and now the managers have to deal with it.
So what they agreed with is that they needed the money.
You got it.
Yeah, got it.
They wanted the admin fees, they wanted all the things that comes with it, but they will still want your organization to continue doing whatever they were doing first. This is over and above, that's why we're having so many burnouts, there's just so much of a disconnect from, a manager, and I'm saying this from a funder and manager perspective. A lot of the times, the managers can't make it to the meeting because they've got 7 other funding streams that they're taking care of, and that there might be an emergency with infrastructure or the province or with you guys or whatever, and they can't always make it to that meeting, so that it makes it look like they're not trying to be there, but you can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
And if your board of directors is not supportive and behind the management, you can't be everything to everyone,
Yeah.
It's very difficult for everyone, and if everyone could just get in the same room and talk, from the janitor to the CEO, and talk about exactly what the organization needs and move forward, you'll have a lot less burnouts.
Yeah. So in other words, what I'm hearing is getting back to the concept of compassion
Yes.
and energy for the work that you're doing, as opposed to just getting as much funding as we can.
Under dictatorship, yes.
Okay? And are there other reasons? Are there other reasons? Whoops. Sorry. We'll skip that one. Which of these areas are true or factors in your organization? And we've heard some of them listed already, right? Burnout, staff retention, vicarious trauma, which is not the same as burnout, so you know. Crisis management. Boy, you have no idea how often we hear that when we go to different places.
Don't do that.
Jody's Teams is on.
Good to know.
Okay? And training provided to staff in my organization is mandated, optional, both, or you don't have training. You didn't know you were going to just do a survey for 40 minutes, did you?
We do share the data with them.
We can. Yeah, we can. We'll have to know. Yeah, if you want the responses from this, then maybe give us your business card or something that we can send it to
We'll
you.
give you a contact, the QR code at the end, and you can.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, we'll have a QR code for our contact at the end, and you can send it to us. Do you think changes in staff training could improve your ability to retain staff and better support program participants? And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that we would say yes, it's an absolute. And it's not just because that's our role in our organizations to do training, but it's because we actually honestly believe that, and we know from research. In fact, Jody has just finished a master's thesis related to this area, and so we know how valuable it is, and that without training, you're going to suffer. You're going to struggle. Okay, when new staff are hired, and we're not doing the whole thing on the survey, just do they generally already have some or all of the necessary training, or do they need training like immediately post hiring?
There still needs to be some type of onboarding for the organization, even if you're coming from somewhere else that was relevant.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're referring to with need training.
That's really important and lacks big time.
Yeah.
In nonprofits and runs anyways.
Okay. And do you think staff are prepared for their specific work through the training they receive? So you all talked about there is training happening, that some of it you're mandated for, some of it you're not. So there's training occurring, but is the training that you're getting or that your staff getting preparing them for what they need to do? So there's an interesting statistic right there. And so when you talk about time, who is going to take the time out of their schedule, if it's not a mandated training, to go to a training that isn't valuable for you? Or if it is mandated, now you've just wasted time and you've wasted money backfilling the positions that went to that training. Okay, what are the roadblocks or excuses for not having or providing an appropriate training routine in your organization? Okay. So we could have probably guessed at some of these answers from the other questions that we had. All right. So we know that most of you, now I'm sure there's a few of you in this room that are where you are because you saw what the salary was on the job posting. But we know that most of us do this work because it's somewhere in here. There's something internally driving you to do it. And that's really sad when we talk about burnout or turnover, because people who had a passion, who had a unique and heartfelt desire to do the work, leaves that work because of all the problems that come along with not having what you need to do that work. So that's very sad. But your heart is there, and you're coming into this for the right reasons. And is it true that this sector attracts a certain type of people? And you could all probably list what some of those characteristics are of the type of people that it brings. And so those people are then special. The people that are coming into this work are special. And so we need to care enough about our staff that are coming in, care enough about each other, that we give them the opportunity to actually put their brain to work and be able to learn the things that are going to help them the most and help your organization the most, and most of all, help those people that are desperately looking for some kind of assistance and support to make that happen. And then, of course, we have a lot of information out there that actually helps us to know and understand what is going to be the most effective things to do. But you guys don't have the time to be researching and gathering that information. It's a lot better if you could actually go to a well-planned out, well-structured, well-organized training and spend a day, maybe two, maybe a half a day, and gaining some of that information than you having to dig around and spend hours upon hours upon hours that you don't have to try to find it and then put it together in some form that's going to make sense to you. And having the structure within your organization, within your life, to be able to participate in those kinds of things.
Jody.
So we're going to turn the time over to Jody. And just so you know, Jody actually is responsible for the keynote speakers at the conference. And so Jody's going to do her part, and then she's going to take off to go and take care of the keynote speaker. So in case you know why she's zipping out the door when she's done.
So I'm going to try to do everything I need to do, and I'm going to click forward because we don't have the presenter mode up here. It's important because this is stuff that we know that evidence-based practice changes lives. We know that doing this work according to what the evidence shows us, what research shows us, helps us. Staff structure and investment leads to retention. We absolutely are convinced with all of the work that we have done training people, Quinn and Wally and I travel across the country, the training we do, people come up to us afterwards and say, this has energized me for the next while. I can take this, I can put it into that space that I needed. It fills my cup and I'm able to stick around. Training helps us to improve our relationships with landlords, with our communities, and it gives us a structure for trauma-informed care. So everything that we are doing is about relationship, but that training that sort of couches it in a way that people understand, that they're able to sort of take it and modify it and use it, gives us something that is much stronger. One of the things that's so important is mental health and trauma. And so one of the courses that we teach is Working Minds, which is from the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and it is mental health awareness in the workplace. But John Ecker and Nick Kerman did a study in 2022 that I cited a lot in my research that talked about moral distress. And they said that during the pandemic, almost 80% of the workers in this sector reported a decline in their mental health. And that's huge. What we found was that in that time period, people were not okay. Wally and Quinn and I did some seminars over that time period. We did a community of practice, and we called people in and we invited them to a webinar, a training session, or it wasn't a training, it was a drop-in session for frontline workers and staff in our sector to just say, how are you doing? And we expected people to not be okay. I didn't expect people to weep on Zoom. And so I think every training I've been to since then, and I know Quinn does the same thing, and I know Wally does the same thing, I tell people I know you're not okay. And it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. But the only way through this, and one of the reasons that we've said to leadership, you need to be in the room when we train, is because you need to hear what's going on for your staff. If you're not able to be there and be present for them and hear the stories that come out, the last 3 weeks prior to this conference, I was in 3 different cities, and in every single one, someone told me something that was going on for them in their work that wasn't based on best practice and that was practically dangerous for them or was dangerous for them. And managers did not know. And managers who tell you, oh, we have an open door, I want you to structure it so that you not only have an open door, but you have time for your staff. scheduled regular time, because what do? They say, oh, Jody's too busy, I don't want to bother her. She's got enough on her plate, I don't want to add to it. And that contributes to this 80% of people who are saying, I'm not okay. I just said all of this, right? We know that staff who are well are able to do their jobs. Staff who are adequately trained know how to respond to situations and can stop putting out fires and start digging into what actually needs to happen. When an organization tells me that we are in fire putting out mode, is that a word? What I understand is that staff aren't adequately trained. Because if you are putting out fires, you will always put out fires. And if you're putting out fires, it's because people, their left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And how many times do I go into spaces, or we go into spaces and we hear that? This is an amazing survey, the 2023 Value of Enablement Survey or report. 46% said their employer doesn't offer training beyond onboarding. And I have worked in the sector, and I know, and onboarding sometimes was, here's a binder, read it on your night shift. How many of you read it? I also love self-paced studies. Click, 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 click. Certificate, here you go, boss. Right? Training is about relationship and engagement. It's about the conversations that happen in that room. Sometimes those conversations have nothing to do with what the slide says. It's what comes up in that conversation when people create a space where they feel comfortable enough to share what's happening for them. 80% said they would stay. Upskilling would make them feel more satisfied. They would stay. And 50% said, I'm leaving, or I'm considering leaving because something is going on. He's pulling me off the stage because I've got to go get a keynote speaker. All I can say is train your staff, enable them, equip them, and be there for them, because right now in this time, it's harder than ever, and they're not okay. And they need that extra support.
And just before Quinn gets going, I just want you to sort of rhetorically in your own mind ask yourselves, have I been that person on that bottom statistic? Have I been that person from the last slide that I've asked, am I ready to go?
Yeah, one thing that the research definitely shows us is that if you want to retain staff, and let's be absolutely clear, we're seeing 30 to 50% staff turnover, frontline staff in shelters, transitional housing units, and housing first programs across the country. That's not unusual. In any other sector, we would be talking about a crisis of staffing. In this sector, we're just like, that's just how shit goes. Right? 86% of professionals said they would change jobs if their employer offered them more opportunities for professional development. Right? Employees who get professional development opportunities are 15% more engaged and have 34% better retention. Right? Stock organizational benefits, right? Increases morale, confidence, and motivations. It promotes a sense of security and reduces turnover, right? That improved retention piece is so critical. Listen, people aren't leaving the job because they don't like the work anymore. They're leaving the job because they don't think they know how to do the work. Right? Over and over and over and over and over again, we go to communities across the country and we talk to professionals in this space, and we find out that people don't really know what they're doing. They're gutting it out day after day after day until one day they can. And then they leave and we go, we can't find any staff. Right? Increases staff involvement in the change process by increasing competencies to adjust to new situations. Right? You can't train people to deal with everything, but you can give modes of thinking, you can give approaches that can help people to deal with whatever the street is going to throw at them. Right? Way better workplace environment. right? There's so much less toxicity in a well-trained staff. And increases productivity and performance, increases efficiency, uniformity of work processes. How many times, listen, I'm a person of lived expertise, and I'll tell you, the amount of times that back in the day that one worker would tell me one way the things were gonna go, the next worker told me something completely different, the next worker told me something completely different. I used to think they were fucking with me.
Yeah.
No, they were just not trained.
Right.
Right? Creates a more transparent company structure or organizational structure, increases staff sense of being valued. You want staff to stay? You know, a pizza parlor is not going to cut it. Show them that you're investing in them. It increases valuation from the consumer. In this situation, who's the consumer? It's the participants we're working with, right? Increases valuation. That's corporate speak for they trust you now. So what are the impacts for the participants, right? They receive assistance support more efficiently. That means impacted lives, right? Person-centered focus rectifies power dynamic. That only happens with training. It is the default presumption of all human beings that there is either that the power balance does not exist or that they don't know what to do about it. Well, some percentage of it just enjoy it. And that's a problem. We see increased progress towards life goals. We see long-term, more stable housing and recovery. Housing stabilization and psychosocial outcomes are related to competence of the people they're working with. Right? And when I'm saying competence, I don't mean there are bad staff out there intentionally being bad at their jobs. People don't know. The amount of people that have walked up to me and said, "This is what I do for a living," and I go, "That's impossible." But good luck. Greater confidence and self-determination within the participant, restored trust and connection, greater support and capacity to navigate failure, right? Improvements in physical health, mental health, substance use, and reduced risk. The amount of communities we've gone into where people are saying, "Well, you don't understand. Things are crazy out there, and my clients need me, and my clients keep calling, and there's emergencies, and we're constantly putting out fires," and you're not trained.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that you're in reaction mode, the fact that you're putting out fires, the fact that doesn't mean that your clients are particularly difficult to deal with above and beyond everybody else's clients. That means you don't know what you're doing.
And your lack of training has now trained your clients to be in crisis mode.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Not to mention, let's be absolutely clear, that Nick Kermit study points out that that very behavior, that process, that toxicity, that reactive putting out fires approach is dangerous. It's dangerous to the mental health and well-being. It's traumatizing to participants and staff. There's more opportunity for individual choice and there's increased hope. Right? That's what it's all about out here. Right? We're out here trying to increase the amount of hope in the world, and it's a pretty awesome way to look at your job. So these are some of the trainings that we do provide. However, we do have a number of bespoke trainings. I like calling them bespoke rather than designed for you. It makes it sound a little more hipstery, and it's like a cool coffee or something. We'll make it just for you. But we use all of our years of expertise. Wally, Jody, and myself combined have decades and decades of expertise at all parts of the sector, from all aspects of the sector, from the funder to the front line to people that used to receive these kinds of services. And in every single one of these cases, we can bring a lot of expertise, and we design these things specifically for you. So if you get a Homelessness 101, for example, we do have that, between 50 and 70% pre-built, and the rest we design specifically for you, for your community, for what's going on. Just one second, I do see your hand. So let's talk really quick about the training strategy. I just want to get through this so we can get to questions at the end. The training strategy, we do multiple things, right? The onboarding live sessions. We have a process where we engage with the system lead. We do outcomes monitoring so that we can see if we are achieving what we're trying to set out to achieve with those trainings. We do insist that management actually attend any of the trainings that we provide so that we don't go into a community, get people fired up with a new practice and have them a lot of skills, and then get back to the office and have somebody in the C-suite say, we just don't do that here.
Well, or they actually tell us in the training, well, this is all great, but we're not going to be able to go back and implement it because the people who need to make the decisions about changing this practice aren't here.
Yeah. And so having that leadership support, having the training that we do, we want that inculcated into policy, right? If we're giving you a new best practice that you're not already doing it, it needs to actually come into effect. The trainings that we provide, we tend to ask of the people that are being trained that there's needs to be changes happen now. Right? There's also a follow-up component. We come back and we, usually virtually, and we follow up with people. We are open to meeting with people to make sure that those practices that we talk to are being accessed and brought into use. And that is kind of the three-phase process, right? We have phase 1, the preparation, phase 2, the training event, and phase 3, the post-training follow-up. And with that,
so I'll just say something really quickly about that. Quinn sort of highlighted around the edges, but our whole purpose, and I mean, in the end, we can't come in and force any organization or community or whatever to do what we say you have to do. But we do make it very clear because somebody will contact us. We never ever engage in going and doing a training for somebody with them just saying, here's what I'd like, and we say, okay, and then we come and do it. We insist on having that conversation ahead of time and spending the time discussing with you what it is your needs really are. Because there's been multiple times that I have been engaged by somebody who wants a training in a particular topic area. By the time we're done with that initial conversation, the training that we're actually going to deliver is something very different. Mm-hmm. Because usually they think they know what it is that they want, but often as we discuss it and we get into it and we sort of have a pseudo counseling session, we find out that there's really some other things that are probably a bigger priority. So it's really important to us to have that conversation and to be able to sort of tease out what really is important to you, and then we'll plan it out, and then we'll discuss what it is that's going to tell you after the training has happened whether or not you've had the impact you needed it to have, and what that impact is going to look like. And then that's the part that we follow up on is, did you actually see that? Because it actually is a benefit to us as well. It helps us to know if we're training in the right things, if our content is the way it needs to be, if it's coming across the way it should be. But it's only going to help you in the end improve your support for those folks that really need it.
And then the last thing I wanted to say just before, my keynote was already ready, I could have stuck around, but he's going to be amazing, by the way. The last thing I wanted to say was, Wally alluded to some research that I did in the last while, and I interviewed staff across the country on how they learned to do the work that they did. I talked to fairly new people, I talked to people who were in management, but I referred them back to the time when they started the roles. Not one single person I interviewed told me that they felt equipped for the job when they started or understood the role. Not one single. Most of them felt abandoned and that their onboarding wasn't enough. So I want you to think back to that Slido where you say we offer training. That's great, but I'd love you to ask your staff whether or not your training's enough.
Now I can, the question.
We did French, I'm from Montreal, and during the pandemic, of course, we found we need more training because we have many young people come with no experience. And so we start offering training, but this is more comprehensive, so do you offer in French?
Well, I can't even do a French accent.
We could probably, I guess we could do simultaneous interpretation.
No,
Selma speaks
we
French.
don't currently have, we don't have a French trainer, a French language trainer. We would require simultaneous translation if we were able to do that. Yeah. Which is sad. We do have a growth plan for our organization, and that is something that we are looking at long term, but it's not something we have the capacity for today.
Quinn,
But-
Selma speaks French.
Good to know. All right. Any more questions? Go
Do
ahead.
you want to speak into the mic so
Yeah, that
the,
might be helpful.
The folks at home can.
But just
That way the recording.
Yes, and also questions for both, for Rosemary and Selma as well.
I'm just wondering what the name of the report was that was earlier in the slide. Was it seismic or there
Oh,
was a
the
report
study
referred
that
to?
you.
The
yeah.
study, okay. I just want to write that down.
Which study? You can access,
it?
I think we're gonna give you all the slides at the end.
Size.
This one?
The two.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah, this is 1,200 professionals in management leadership surveyed throughout the USA and Europe. It was quite interesting. It's not directly applicable to the field, but there were some good takeouts for it.
So
Any
if
other
you-
questions?
If you do have questions, please use the mic if you
Yeah,
can.
come on up to the
Yeah.
mic. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Hi, so I have a question for Homeward Trust folks. One is, did you get the city kind of on board with basically training all frontline workers, or is this kind of an ad hoc if they request it? And do you sense that it's working in terms of, like you talked about what the goals are, but is there any sort of evaluation process or, yeah?
Actually, it's through Homeward Trust, and they put it out to the different housing teams the training is offered to them. And the city's not really involved in this that I'm aware of, but we are going to do evaluations at the end to see if there's anything else that we need to add to our presentation for them, or if there's anything else they need to know. And Katie's in charge of training, actually.
Yeah, so for context, Homeward Trust is the assistant planner for ending homelessness in Edmonton. So we're not necessarily connected to the shelters. So right now it's just for the housing first programs like supportive housing, ICM, ACT, all of that stuff. And so yeah, we've done a bunch of evaluations in terms of right after feedback on the training, but haven't necessarily been able to roll it out long enough to see the long-term effects of it.
Okay, thank you.
But I did have, like I said, with a housing worker I work with, said she learned so much from our presentation, and she'll be better able to work with the community that she serves.
I have no doubt. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Folks mapped out a lot of workshops and trainings that were centered around how to better support clients. I was wondering if folks also offer training to help staff better navigate interpersonal relationships with each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we can tailor training to you. That's what as Wally said, we will connect with you and oftentimes, yeah, you do it.
Well, I just was going to say we have one of the trainings that we've recently sort of expanded on and shifted a bit is in the area of sort of trauma-informed care and practice, but we've actually shifted it to be, we call it now self and other care, and which is also part of trauma-informed practice. And so it's more about the idea that if you don't take care of yourself, you're not trauma-informed. And if you want to be trauma-informed, you have to take care of yourself, right? So and so we work from both angles and help help organizations to sort of work with each other and understand how to help each other if you're struggling and, you know, are feeling those challenges.
We are at the end of our time. If you want to ask us any more questions, I just insist that they're done in the form of a haiku. So get working on those now.
Just send it to me though.
But also come by our booth and talk to us more, and we can, you know, discuss things in more detail.
And if you have questions about their training, that's my email, and I can get you in contact with them or I can answer them.